Hey, I'm James from Smoking Head Barbecue, and I've made the decision to sell my pizza oven. Let me tell you why. So in many ways, my Piazza Piccolo wood-fired pizza oven has lived up to the expectations that I had 2 years ago when I decided to buy one and get one for my backyard. And there are also a few reasons, some big, why I've decided to sell it. So I'm going to go through all of that today, including where and how it's lived up to some expectations, some of the reasons or things that I've learned, and answer the question of if I had a time machine and could go back, would I buy it again? That might be a valuable resource to yourself or anybody you know who's thinking about buying a wood-fired oven of their very own in 2024. So let's get into first a quick recap of why I picked this model and how it's done versus those expectations 2 years later under the belt. If you saw my original unboxing and review of my Piazza Piccolo wood-fired oven, there was a couple features that were relevant then that are just as relevant now when I was looking for a wood-fired pizza oven. I said in the very first few videos that this was a bit of an experiment for me, and I just wasn't willing to pay top dollar. There are models costing more than double what I have, but at the same time, if I'm going to do something, I don't want to immediately get a compromise out of the gate that might impact the experience. And there was a bunch of features that Piazza has in their wood-fired ovens that compare very well to ovens costing more than double what I paid and what you could still pay today if you were in the market for an oven. So the key features, if you find yourself looking, that mattered to me and I think still matter to me if I was in the market or if you'd be in the market, first is the insulation. So there's very thick insulation, about 5 inches from memory, that Piazza uses in their wood-fired ovens. And there's been times where I can have a pizza in here and still be able to touch the outside. We are right in a walkway. It's maybe not so obvious, on camera. When we have guests and company over, this is at child level. So if someone was to bump in it or touch it on the outside, not that it's completely safe, it does get very hot very quickly, but the insulation helps make that something that will be like, ooh, I don't want to touch that very long versus a quick trip to the hospital. This is also really important in terms of energy consumption, like any Kamado or things that we've talked about in the past, being able to retain some of that heat energy and cook with it over a long time. In fact, that retained energy is something I've used for things like one of our family favorites, Alabama white chicken, where I used retained heat energy to cook that chicken. Now, that's because the oven is very energy efficient, but also something I'll get to a little bit later in some of the cons is it's just not practical to manage a fire and not get over the top flames that can completely crisp the skin while the chicken is still raw. So using retained heat is one of the easiest ways to cook without getting any of the downsides as well as unlocking all the upsides. Speaking of upsides, another advantage that Piazza has over some competitors in the space and price point was the thickness of the floor surface itself. So if you see some of the popular taking over your internet Facebook ads, brands like Gunzi or Solo Stove or Uni and a whole bunch of others have very thin decks by comparison. And so this is just not going to be as resilient to withstanding cracks over wear and tear like I have now 2 years under the belt. It's also a little bit more susceptible to temperature swings. So we can build up too much heat. There is such thing as too much heat, and we don't want to shoot way past that and have a stone surface that is going to burn the bottom of whatever that we're going to be cooking. So those advantages that I was looking for in my shopping list from 2 years ago, I wouldn't change with 2 years experience. I still think the insulation, particularly in my cold northern climate, is a good feature, along with the extra protection. Even though that does get warm, it never gets to the point of melt your skin off if you accidentally quickly bump into it. And if you have something where, again, you've got young kids or guests walking by, I think that's a great feature. Same is true with the deck surface. So I'm able to get energy stored up in that and use it for things like cast iron pans, bring sausages, to a boil, take advantage of the over-the-top flame, and crisp them up very nicely. It was a great win-win combination. And another reason, so third on the shopping list that I was looking for, not specifically related to a feature of Piazza versus competitors, but I was looking for a different heat signature. As you can tell behind me, my most common grill that I'm cooking on is a Kamado style grill. And all of those share a few common traits, which is they are very energy efficient. So we're not able to burn a lot of wood and get significant amount of smoke as they are very energy efficient and don't need a large fire. That's true of almost any Kamado that I've ever used, as well as the fire placement. All the fire in any Kamado style grill and most kettles is below the food that you're cooking. So we're getting a bottom up heat signature, which encourages great Maillard reaction on steaks or even pizza bottoms, but it struggles with getting enough heat and energy in the top, short of maybe using a raised grid extender or something like that to take advantage of heat stored in the dome. And so I was looking for opening up sort of a new option, if you will, in terms of heat signatures. So if 2 years later, my La Piazza Piccolo wood-fired oven is still checking some of those same boxes that I was hoping for when I was shopping, like the insulation, the floor deck surface thickness, as well as opening up new heat signatures from top-down heat. Let's get into one of the most common questions I get asked is, if you were in the market today, would I buy it again? And what has led me to sell it? Because those are not necessarily the same answer. So let's start with the question of, would I buy this again? Or is it worth buying a wood-fired pizza oven? As that's one that I get in the comments all the time. So I'll prioritize starting with that one. Well, answering this question, I don't think I can answer for you. I'm going to give you some of the tools and you can navigate the answer, because the answer will depend greatly on what you have. So for an extreme scenario, let's say all you ever have is something like your gas or electric oven inside your house. If you asked me that question and said, James, is it worth getting a wood-fired pizza oven? No doubt, absolutely yes. Is the incremental utility that it's going to provide to you. It's going to open up live fire wood cooking. I mentioned the spatchcock chicken, one of our family favorites. Of course, you can do pizza, steak, and a whole bunch of other fun recipes over the last 2 years that I've shared on the channel. This opens up a world of cooking opportunities. But if you start to add additional tools, this is where the answer can change. So if we add what I have in plentiful supply right now, things like a Kamado cooker, these are a bit of the SUV of grills. They're not necessarily the subject matter expert in one particular category. Let's say if we wanted to do a brisket, an offset might be the absolute best tool for that. Or I should have started with this one. If you want to do pizza, I even did a pizza head-to-head, and number one was my pizza oven and number two was my dojo. So the number one tool obviously shows up in spades, and this is true across a variety of categories. But if you could only have one grill to do everything, I have not found anything better than a Kamado that can be a bit of a jack of all trades. And so if you have one of these already, it immediately impacts the utility of your pizza oven, because running a charcoal fire or doing smoking, I tried to do a pork shoulder low and slow, and this is much more difficult to run live fire and maintain a fire than it is inside of your Kamado Joe. It does really well at wide open flames for things like pizza. It does really well for retained energy cooking, but maintaining a small, clean burning fire in here is more difficult than it is in something like a Kamado Joe, because again, juggling that fuel supply and not having the wood start to smoke and put off bad flavors is much more difficult than it is in something like a Kamado style grill. Speaking of smoke, then I complicated, and this is more me than my La Piazza Piccolo wood-fired oven, but by adding an offset smoker, this is where I have access to the large firebox, which is also burning a wood fire. And when I picked up a pizza stone and threw it in there, I was blown away at the quality of the wood-fired pizza that I was able to do at the end of a rib cook using something like my offset. So the more of these tools that we add, the more pressure it is putting on the utility of the pizza oven itself. And if you're the type of family who every Friday, every Saturday, it doesn't matter, pick your day, says our family tradition is getting together and having a large pizza party, then you can justify having something like this wood-fired oven in your household absolutely no problem. I'm the only one in our house who thinks pizza is a meal substitute for all three meals a day, but not everybody wants as much pizza as I absolutely enjoy. So if your family is not making pizza every single week, as we are not the type of family who is doing that, this again starts to say, well, For convenience, if I want something quick and easy, I might use my Kamado style grill. And if I want sort of that wood-fired flavor experience, or even the top-down heat, as again, that's where both offsets run things, and or I could use the firebox to turn out some amazing pizza. That starts to really pinch more than I anticipated sort of 2 years ago. I hoped that this would open up a whole new swim lane, just like my offset did when I picked it up. There's incremental benefits to getting that, in a complete swim lane for the offset. There's a complete swim lane, you know, for the Kamado. And my assumption 2 years ago is that the pizza oven would open up a brand new lane. But sadly, this is the dotted line between these two other lanes that are taken up between a Kamado and an offset. So knowing all that, if I had a time machine and I could go back in time, would I still buy it again? Well, knowing what I know now, probably not, but there's no way of knowing what I know now. One of the advantages and the reason that I picked up tools like my offset and my wood-fired pizza oven is to expose just how much better some of these single-purpose tools can be, as well as the benefits of different heat signatures. But that inspires new methods and techniques. Things like the double indirect method came directly from my offset, or playing with trying to leverage more heat higher in the dome came from the pizza oven. And so with that, I have no regrets and would have no hesitation to go back and try that journey again, because where it's taken us, not only was the journey enjoyable, the destination in terms of now what I can apply to other grills and smokers is absolutely greatly appreciated. And for the most part, the product has been faultless itself. It's done exactly what you'd want. I've only had one warranty replacement, and it's almost getting there again. You can see sort of a fogging up temperature gauge, as well as a warped fired basket divider. So this is something that started to warp very early on, and I'm sure if I would have asked or submitted a warranty claim for it, it would have been replaced. I just opted instead to take it out and push my coals around using the rake accessory and leave that out. And so that's not been something that I've been used. So outside of that, the product has been rock solid. So let's get to the elephant in the room then. If it's also great, why sell? Well, this is more a me thing than necessarily a you. Like if I didn't have, you know, a YouTube channel where I'm trying some new things and applying them to different grills, there's no way I would take the loss and depreciation on my La Piazza Piccolo wood-fired oven to buy it new and sell it used. But these things, sometimes I have to go out and buy and experiment with new things on my own. I want to make room for some new toys. And since I have not yet found the money tree on my property or my neighbor's property, selling this is going to allow me to try some other fun things. And speaking of YouTube, while I have a lot of fun cooking on this personally for our own family, the video view performance is clear. This is just not as interesting to you guys as it is for me to cook on and enjoy. So by selling this and giving this to a family who can continue to enjoy it just like what we have, will maybe give me an opportunity to try something that's a little bit of better fit with you guys and the YouTube audience in terms of creating some new content, as well as maybe discovering some new things, as I don't think there's anything left to throw at the wood-fired oven after 2 years that I don't already have a good sense of what it'll do and how I would like to apply some of those learnings now to either my offset or my Kamado. So after 3 months of originally moving my pizza oven to create space for the Joe Jr. to do some brand new content, and I have a couple more surprises not yet released for the Joe Jr. this spring, I didn't end up missing the oven now that I know some of these tips and tricks as much as I thought I might have, and that's been partially behind making me a little bit less worried about putting the for sale sign on, as I know I can recreate some of these items and techniques with the tools that I have, which might be unique to me, but not everyone. Very blessed to have some of those tools and toys to play with. But as I said earlier, deciding whether or not this is a good fit for you is very much more a you decision based on where you are in the spectrum of tools that you have available to you and the types of cooking that you and your family will be doing. I would have no hesitation, continuing to recommend now on video or in the comments when people reach out and ask if I should still look or would you consider looking at La Piazza. I'd absolutely check it out. And I've seen teasers on their website or social channels at trade shows this year. I don't think it's available yet, or I haven't seen it fully online. But from what I gather from those teasers, there's a new model coming out that is a hybrid of live fire as well as gas. Whether the gas feature is there just to help ignite your wood fire, fire and then you could switch to wood. I don't know. I don't have the details, but it looks like there's some exciting things coming. So if you pass the test in terms of all the things that you're looking for, I would have no hesitation to recommend adding La Piazza wood-fired ovens to your potential list for consideration and deciding whether or not that would be a good brand fit and product fit for you in 2024 or in the future whenever YouTube serves this up to you. That's it for today, though. I'm James from Smoky Dad Barbecue signing off, and next time you see me or shortly thereafter, we will have our Joe Jr. back in this space. That's it for today. Don't be afraid to fire it up.